Welcome to video 3 in our Pro Tools tutorial series. In this video, we will go over configuring your system so you can begin working. In this video, we will cover playback engine, disk allocation, peripherals, session, workspace, system usage, and preferences. Everything we're about to cover can be found in 3 of Pro Tools menu selections: Setup, Window, and preferences can be found under both Setup and Pro Tools. The playback engine determines your system resources for reproduction of what you will be working on. Current engine allows you to choose the source through which Pro Tools will play back. It's here that you identify any converters you wish to use. HW buffer size refers to hardware buffer, or how much information your computer is storing to keep the system steady. Use a smaller buffer for recording at low latency, and a larger buffer when using lots of tracks or processing in editing or mixing. Host processor refers to the number of core processors allotted to Pro Tools while you are working. The higher the number, the faster the program will run. The CPU usage limit option sets the maximum proportion of your computer's processing power that will be allocated to Pro Tools Audio Engine. The remaining percent of CPU power will have to do all the other chores, like displaying meters and graphics, controlling automation, and dealing with MIDI. Delay compensation is simply adding up the number of samples or milliseconds your track is delayed by plugins, and delaying the playback accordingly to keep everything in time. You can choose between a short and long compensation. DAE playback buffer. The larger the buffer, the slower Pro Tools will respond. It reduces the amount of work Pro Tools has to do. For a responsive system, keep the buffer low. The default of 2 should work most of the time. The cache size determines the amount of memory DAE allocates to pre-buffer audio for playback and looping when using elastic audio. Again, the default of normal is fine. The plugin streaming buffer determines the amount of memory DAE allocates for playback when using the structure plugin. Disk allocation controls where you decide to save the information of your session. After opening the disk allocation, you will notice each track can be individually allocated to a different destination. By right-clicking on the current destination, you can select a new destination for each track. This will prompt an open dialog box where you can choose where your audio will be saved. You can also set a custom allocation option and change the root folder which Pro Tools will write and read from. Then set the option for subfolders within your new destination. Round-robin allocation means that Pro Tools will automatically distribute new tracks around all of the record drives connected to your system. When we talk about a peripheral in Pro Tools, we are usually referring to a control surface or an external word clock. Once you open Peripherals, click the MIDI tab. Find the peripheral in the drop-down menu and select. It also contains MTC synchronization, Ethernet controllers such as a Control24 mixer, digital mic preamps, satellite options for Digital Media Composer, and Pro Tools Live Sound System Venue. The session window displays the basic information about the session you are currently working in, including sample rate, bit depth, clock settings, and the session start. Workspace is essentially your control over all drives and catalogs connected to your system. By clicking on each arrow, it will expose all subfolders within each drive and folder. By right-clicking on any volume, it will give you a menu of options, one of the most important being Unmount, to eject your drive. System usage indicates the amount of available resources which Pro Tools is using, your CPU power for both real-time audio and elastic audio, as well as the allocated record drive. HD and native systems will also have a meter for PCI cards. The Preferences menu contains options for the way in which your system will default. The Display menu controls settings for plugin organization and certain metering and color functions. The Operation tab controls different options for playback, recording, and backup. Tracks, fading, zooming, and memory locations. The mixing menu gives you the ability to alter settings mainly within the mix window, such as setup, controllers, and automation. Processing gives you the ability to alter the way Pro Tools affects the audio you will be working with. You see options for audio suite, time compression and expansion, importing, and elastic audio. The MIDI tab has some alterations for your MIDI setup, such as note display and score editor display. Finally, the synchronization tab sets a couple of preferences for any external word clocks or MTC generators you may use. To start, you will leave all of your preferences at their defaults. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out the fourth video in this series as we learn to set up your input and output configurations.